All right, so yeah, I did some prototyping, I guess we'll call it today. I mean, we're past the design phase, sort of. There's no such thing as really past the design phase. You're always going to go back and reiterate the designs and uh, play with pieces to get the differences that you want to change on them. Um, Early on, playing with these, I had 4 of these that I dabbled together uh, in my first round of attempts, and that's about the right idea, except for they're way too small. I look at these and I'm like, that's not a coaster. Like, what cup are you putting on these? Maybe like a small, like children's tea set coaster. Like, I don't see that standing up to most uses of glasses, and it's just corrugated cardboard, and it's really hard to cut good detail in corrugated cardboard when you're trying to get that small anyway. So I did some tinkering around, and I cut um, a larger rectangle. So I mean, I decided I wanted to see, like, with a rectangle, how close to the edges can I get and still maintain a unit and have the puzzle slide in into the place. So what the idea would be you have it as a coaster with the puzzle side up, you pour the pieces out, and then it's just a flat back. You put your cup down on, and you play with the pieces, try to assemble them into a shape. So it's really two coasters, one with a cutout in the middle and one with just a plain coaster on it. But they're thinner material you can do that with. And so I cut out the star on that one and cut out all the little pieces for some of the designs and realized, oh, it's going to be a real pain in the butt to try to show off any of these pieces because it's just a jumble of small parts. But and it's not like an equilateral pentagonal star, which it should be. It's freehanding, it's a little rough, but once I go back through the design software and get laser cutout pieces, it'll go better than that. But what I was looking at as I was going over that is, like, do I want to do square tiles? I mean, they make the most sense for using the material to the maximum potential. Like, you just cut the squares all along at regular intervals, and a square piece of plywood, birch ply, gets cut into smaller squares. So you're not really producing any large amounts of off-cut weird pieces. But I have to admit, I kind of like the design element of doing well, I liked this idea for about most of the day, where I use a circular coaster design with the star in the middle and the points coming to the edges of the circle so that you can lay it in there. But when you turn it over, it's just a circle coaster and you make your star on the front. And I'm like, that's a pretty cool idea. And then I realized that I'm making pentagram coasters. So there might be a few people who might resist that. I'm not sure. I'm almost to the point where I don't care. Because if you're going to avoid buying a product because of something it's not meant to be representing, that's on you. But it's also something you don't want to kill your audience for sales by inadvertent design elements. But I do kind of like the circular coaster design. The square coaster, I did some checking around on, and that's like, it's bigger. It's bigger than the circular one. I actually traced the circle one on it before it fell apart, and yeah, you could fit that whole circle coaster in the middle of this one. So, like, for use of material, but I mean, like, the pieces that get cut off between the circles, you're going to have small squares, and I don't. I mean, it's squares with curved edges, but I suppose I could make other little tiled decorative pieces from those to use up the material as best as I can, and not have any to not have as much waste produced. But yeah, and so I did some testing, some basically using the disc piece, and I'm like, this looks awfully big. That feels, I know that feels big to me. Well, yeah, because it is big. But you know, this size to a human, like a palm of my hand, kind of, that feels slightly larger maybe than I'd want to go. But I did some looking at like a glass tumbler, a little glass, and found that no, in fact, it's not actually a huge glass. See if I can, a huge glass. What? Famous historical figure? Look it up. So it's not huge. It doesn't, and it's like it's enough that it's a little wiggle room. I could go a little smaller. I took a coffee mug too, because that's in my family. That's the most often used mug cup. Somebody pours himself a cup of coffee and it sits on a coaster or a napkin all afternoon until it's cold coffee that they just keep sipping, and then they leave it there, forget about it. There's about a quarter inch of coffee in the cup, and 3 days later you go find it with something growing in the top of it, and somebody started 2 other mugs since then, and it's just like this is the mug that you find. This is the cup you find all over the house. And again, size wise, that's about what you want. You want a little edge around the base of the cup, all around your mug. So I think that's the size I want to do. I will admit that I was looking at one of these that we have sitting around here and thinking like, well, how does that compare to that? And it is sizably larger than the base of this cup, but the top, not so much. So I think this is roughly the size I want to do. And it's about a 9 to 10 centimeter diameter, I think. I didn't exactly measure it out. So I think this is mostly the size that we want to look at doing. The question after that becomes square or circle. And I admit I still like circle. I think the thing I like about the circle is just it's a nice shape for this. Like a square is a square. Your napkins can be square. Your sometimes tabletops are square or rectangle, and they stack neatly and pack uniformly with other objects. They take up a set amount of space. They don't leave empty corners anywhere. But this, I think, as a design element, I like better. It's aspects of the star in the middle aside. I like this design element more. Now, if I'm doing this, I'm pretty sure, like I thought about, do I want to do like the surface of the coaster in red or red and white stripes? Well, red and white stripes might be kind of fun, but not necessary. Just giving this a red coating, having a white star, and then have the larger, like the larger tray be blue for the larger star it makes. think that's probably what I do. And it's also possible I could do I could do this in blue with a white star and do the larger tray with red on the star side and red and white stripes on the back of the tray. That's possible. Is the circle going to be a problem though? Do I want to do blue square? Like here, I could just make one set of each. It's not that big a deal. I could make a square one and a circle one. I think the other thing I realized as I was thinking about this circle is like a circle with red, white, and blue and a star in the middle. I'm like, oh, right, because I just watched one of the Captain America movies. So I think there's a part of my brain that's, latched onto that imagery. So I wonder if that's where some of it came from. Um, it's funny that my brain could do that to me without me noticing. And then, I did dabble with these popping in and out, making sure they fit. This is entirely too small to be making the puzzle pieces out of, because this one would have to be cut along those lines. And first of all, corrugated cardboard is terrible for making tiny pieces out of. Use a cereal box. Honestly, it makes it so much easier. But doing the pattern pieces on this, these are way too small. These are too fiddly for fitting into a coaster. You want 2 to 3 times this size easy. And I think with the size of the circle, with the cutout pieces that came off of the cutoff star, like that's a much more dealable, that's a better deal as far as how to handle the pieces. We're just going to be a jerk about it, okay? Gotcha, I see. So being able to do, pieces like that, that's a piece you can handle relatively well. This individual arm to the star is a piece. It's a tile that you can play with. It's not a bead. I mean, you're not stringing beads just when you're playing with a coaster and you got a drink on it or anything. So being able to make the stars a manageable piece that you can handle at the time, make the coaster big enough for most cups. And so I like sizing it. I think I figured that out. Like I said, I could probably do one set of square and one set of circular. And I think I'm going to do, I think I like the idea of the blue coaster, white star, red tray for the larger star, so it'd be red and white. Flip it over and it'd be red and white stripes on the back for the surface that you might put a pitcher or snacks on. I think that works, for me at least. And doing 4 coasters underneath one tray makes a set that goes together relatively well. I think, organizing the final reiteration of the design, I think I've got it worked out now. Then it just becomes, make the 2 that I'll make out of birchwood ply, sand them, stain them, and do so. Try listing one up on Etsy and try listing one up on eBay, and maybe I'll list up 2 on each site, because I can easily make another 2. So I gotta go source some birchwood ply and build the designs in 3D soft, or not 3D, vector software, so I can teach the equipment to cut the pieces I needed to cut. Because freehanding those stars, those are great for just getting a sense of size and dimension. When they have to all fit together one way and then shift all the pieces around to fit together in an entirely different way, you want them uniform. This is not a like, oh, well, just wing it and fix the positioning when you're done. That's not going to work. So the way to do the bases, I'll keep using the circle one because the square one is going to fall apart if you keep playing with it. I'm going to need to make 2 circles for every coaster and 2 squares for the tray. And in the bottom layer of the coasters, or this top layer, whatever orientation you put them in, the part that comes out to be the puzzle, I'm going to get twice the puzzle pieces as I will get the coasters. Because like this bottom one's a circle, the top one on top of it is the same circle with the star cut out of it into the individual pieces. I do that for 4 of these. And then I make the tray a large square with a star cut out of it. All the little pieces that come out of the individual coasters will fit into the bottom of the tray to make a larger star. But the large star I cut out of that tray for them to fit in there, that can all be cut into pieces that fit into these tiles. But for the set, you only need one set of pieces between the coasters and the tray. But I'm thinking if I cut another base square for a second tray and a second set of base circles for the coasters, but the top layer that I would do this and cut the stars out of, those pieces that get cut out, if I use the scrap that comes between each square or each circle, so this is going to be a square down here roughly about that size, I might be able to dimensionally arrange them such that for the coasters, they could be the missing pieces around the star. It's possible that I can maximize the use of material without losing any extra stuff. I'll have to really consider that. Yeah, I might be able to make that work in a way that makes sense. It's not like I can't use the scrap material in other projects too. But yeah, so I'm working on that. I'm having one of those, like my brain is sort of like, yeah, this is a neat project, so I'm gonna do what I need to do this afternoon and then completely forget about it. And then hurry up and try to catch up tomorrow evening when I start to fiddle with it again. Meanwhile, all the while, my brain is just pummeling me with new ideas of things to play with, things to make, stories to write, ideas for adjustments to book designs, messing around with video concepts, so scripting things that aren't animation, because, oh Lord, did I not plan appropriately for how difficult the animation process for animations are. And then, sorry if you've got OCD and you've just noticed that sorry. But yeah, my brain is sort of just kind of like ping ponging, like, can we please just work on the 4 things that we're working on right now? Well, 5 technically, because I'm getting a little ahead of myself on one of them because I have to. But anyway, yeah, my brain just keeps wanting to jump to other projects, and like it's trying to get it to snap back and finish at least some of this stuff by the end of the month. It's it's funny and it's frustrating, but I recognize there are plenty of people out there who do not have the advantage of a brain that comes up with creative ideas for them to try on a regular basis. I've interacted with people on a regular basis where they love the idea of creative projects, but given a week of time, just can't come up with a project to create. And I realize not only, not only should I not expect that other people have ideas regularly like that, but I shouldn't complain that I have so many ideas. um, my what I try to do with that is I try to write down my ideas. I share ideas with people on my channel here, so that if you can't come up with your own idea but you want to try to do something creative, do your version of this. Make some coasters, make some puzzle coasters. I'm okay with that. I'm actually more than okay with that. I want you to create something. And if that creating something is not sure how to do it yourself yet, so take one of my ideas, do something with it. I want to make it possible for you to do something creative. And I feel like as you do projects and get your feet under you, you will come up with your own ideas in that process. You can't be working on a creative project and not get some kind of stimulation to becoming creative on a regular basis. But if you don't have that right now, that's okay. Like I see a lot of people who they want to be YouTubers and they want to create a YouTube channel, and they start a channel, they start making videos, and like a month in, they'll start posting to some communities or talking with other YouTubers and saying things like, yeah, I'm working very regularly to update and trying to get good quality videos made. I just, I don't know what to make videos about. And I'm like, I'm a little torn on that sometimes. Of like, why would you make videos to be a YouTuber if you don't know what you want to make videos about? Like, I struggle to understand from that perspective, but by the same token, I really do feel like if you just make videos about whatever appeals to you at any given time, or just do a vlog, you're going to eventually find things that you're more interested in covering on a regular basis. You can look at some of the YouTubers that are out there, and you'll see that, you know, uh, many of them started out with this sort of all over approach, and gradually they just settled in on a pattern that was what they were more interested in talking about on a regular basis, and the thing they related most to with their viewers. I am a little worried in my sense that I'm all over the place, and I'm probably going to stay all over the place, but That's because when I started my channel, my interests were um, I was doing this not so much to build an audience or to become a YouTuber so much as I got a little tired of meeting up with some of my friends and trying to talk about all the things that I'm interested in doing and the projects that I'm working on, and only being able to talk about 1% of it because most of my friends only have about a 1% overlap in their interests with mine. I'm all over the place. I want to write books. I want to paint paintings. I want to make music. I want to do make a video game, board games. I want to do different recipes, try new foods and taste tests. I want to do test out new products and figure out what's important to me in a product like that. Design things that meet my needs that commercial products don't meet. Those are things I want to play with. And my painter friends, they're there for the art. They can sometimes handle the music. When it gets to video games, their eyes glaze over. When it gets to product review and testing, they're not really all that interested. And so, like, when I talk with other writers, they're there about the writing in most cases. And that's all fine. I get it. Not everybody has to be all over the board like I am. I realize that I come across as a dog with ADD and a squirrel farm. It's just I can seem like I'm all over the place. I get that, but I struggle with wanting to talk about, share, and be excited about all the things that I'm excited about, and not having a place to do it because people get bored when I'm talking about coding in Python for a video game design when they want to talk about paintings and maybe music. They're just not there for that video game aspect. And they don't know what to do with that information. And so I stopped talking about it. And I didn't want to stop talking about it. I want to be passionate and enjoy the things that I enjoy. I just can't do that everywhere. And so for me, this channel was a way to do me no holds barred. Making them videos means that when I'm talking about doing the paintings or doing artwork, my artist friends can just watch that category of my videos. When I want to do something about game design, my programming friends can look into that and offer advice and tips about how to work in coding languages and bring in outside artwork into and tie that in through values in the coding. I'm not a coder by any stretch of the imagination, but making a game has made it interesting enough for me to try to learn it. And oh god, this ear infection's really getting to me. The like trying to pick just one category, I don't think I'd ever be satisfied, and I'd feel stifled if I only did one. But this is a means for me to be able to do all of them and not bore the people that are around me with details of things they're not interested in. But there's also the aspect of doing these videos. I hope that there are some other people out there with 3 or 4 of my interests that are interested in working on more than just some of that. And they want to find a place where they too can feel like they can be all of themselves without having to stifle some of it just to make a social interaction more comfortable for everybody. And I got to this ramble by talking about yeah, I'm a little all over the place. Um, the puzzle design, or if you're interested in making something like this, please do. Don't leave it as, you know, observational. If you're interested in doing a creative project and you don't know what creative thing to do, if you're a YouTuber that started YouTubing and you don't know what kind of YouTube content to make, do something I did okay at, make a better one. And if you want to, remake everything I've made. Watch the movies I've watched, read the books I've read, do the taste tests that I've done, do your own ratings on them, and come up with your own maybe ideas or review my ideas. I don't actually care. Please play with this stuff. And that's sort of half the fun for me is like I looked through that book of puzzles, and there are puzzles that were, 3-star puzzles that make one larger star. There were 5-star puzzles that make larger stars. I'm making a 4-star puzzle that makes a larger star. I'm doing my own variant on some of the star cuts, how they're cut so that they fit together right. Um, I'm doing my own color scheme, and I'm turning them into a useful product, not just a fun puzzle, but also a coaster set. I'm doing the woodworking and the staining and the finishing and the waterproofing myself. And like, yeah, I didn't come up with the idea of doing a transforming star puzzle myself. It's not full scratch. But you have to realize as a creative culture, most of our stuff is rehashing stuff that's existed before. There's there was a YouTube video a while back, or like a documentary that was made. Um, it was, I think, like Everything's a Remix or something like that. Like most of the things in our world are creations made from things we've directly experienced. Books are either retellings of stories we've known our whole life, oftentimes told to us as stories as kids by parents, or they're retellings of actual experiences in our lives. Music, well, we're all using the same sets of notes for the most part in music. Like, oh, it's so derivative. He's using an F, G, and an A. Like, why isn't he using something between an F sharp and an F? Why isn't he using one of the sounds in between those ranges? Because they work. They're a system of building blocks through which we can build creative things. And I'm kind of making a index or a storage bin full of idea pieces, building blocks to build new things out of. But by the same token, I'm making these puzzles because puzzles aren't new to me. I'm using the idea of a creative puzzle. I'm using the idea of a star-shaped puzzle. And that's a building block I got from my experiences and encounters with creations by others through history. I'm not a monument to complete originality, and anybody who says they are is usually full of crap. And I'm saying that as a means of trying to motivate you to do a creative thing. You don't have to be completely original. Just create something. You've got it in you. I know you do. You can be a YouTuber. You can do a puzzle maker. You can be a writer, a video animator, product designer, a board game maker. Like, just make something. And like, it doesn't have to be 100% original. And I see a lot of authors asking, like, is this story cliche? Like, almost every book that has come out has enough of it in common with another book that's come out that you could almost say like, oh, it's like this book, only a little different. That's the way stories happen. I can guarantee you that the story of my life has a lot of overlap with the story of your life. At some point, if we were to both write our life stories down, somebody could read both of them and say, oh, well, this is rather derivative of this. Now, that's not to say like you can't do your own style of writing and use your own voice and techniques for uh, conveying some of the parts of your story. But you were born, you will die, you probably went to school, you probably have had a job, you've probably had to pay bills at some point, you've been sick once or twice, you've lost a loved one at some point. A lot of these things overlap. And it's not necessarily a detractor that have similarities into them. Because when you're writing a story, you want the character to be relatable. And being relatable is having things about them that you see in yourself. Your stories are going to have overlap. Doesn't mean that your story isn't worth telling because something like that's already been told. And by the same token, the puzzles I make, there are other puzzles that use stars. Doesn't mean I can't make mine. um, the board games I make, like there are other board games that use an acquisition mechanic and combat mechanic like I use. In fact, probably most of my ideas for that board game design came from different games that I've played over the years. But they work together to make a game that stylistically I think I can make interesting enough. It's not going to be like, oh, you fabricated this from whole cloth all on your own. I can't do that any more than anybody else. It doesn't mean I'm not creative, and it doesn't mean you're not creative. Why am I on this rant? I don't know. We're at 37 minutes, and I've used up a lot of our time. I think I've had a few too many conversations with people who tell me they're not creative and they can't make things, and I want to encourage them that they can. So I guess over the next 24 to 48 hours, I'm going to have to see if I can do a digital file format of the basic shapes like the circle, the square, and the star. And probably the tray. And I'll have to see if I can get the oh geez. I think I should also test size the final star shape, cut out the individual coasters, make the star shape, and use the large single star shape and use that to inform the size of the tray. Because the tray size is contingent on fitting the assembled star in the center. Although, could be kind of interesting to have, depending on how big the pieces are, to have the larger tray be a little larger, but when you get the pieces from the stars slotted into the place, that the tray could end and you can have pieces protruding from the end of, well, I don't know. That could be a design element for a later iteration of this. I think making sure all the pieces that slot into the right places aren't small tiles instead of full-size star pieces. They're too small, they might just fall out. And it makes packaging them difficult if you got sticking out points at regular intervals. I think it should all fit in that space. So I should do the coasters and use the cutout pieces from the coasters to make the large star and use that to inform the size of the tray. Then I can glue up some of the pieces and give them the paint job or the staining job that they need. And then I gotta polyurethane them or spray lacquer. I'm not sure which way I want to go. Again, my default pattern on the thought process behind that is to do both. Do one circle coasters, one square coasters. They're both going to have the square tray. Do a red back and red and white stripe back. Do oil-based polyurethane. Do a spray lacquer. And like that's 6 different sets of coasters and tray. And then sell both on eBay and maybe Etsy. I could do 3 on each. And try to do it in such a way that there's a B for that. Today is what, day 4? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so day 4. 3 more days. I need to step up my game. I need to be going faster and working on things harder. Wow, is it really almost the end of the week? We're further into the week than we are away from the next week. So, wow, there's not a lot of time left, is there? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's about 6 days till the end of the month. I gotta get my stuff together. Alrighty, well, a lot of work to do in the next 24 hours, 48 hours. So I will head out and start working on some of that right now. We got an upload tonight for regular video upload for art/music, which is mostly going to be art. I made some trips to some art museums. And so that'll go up tonight, tomorrow morning-ish, depending on what time zone you're in. And then I got to work on some of the design elements for this puzzle to get finished up and maybe get a prototype. Like not a prototype, I mean, that's what those are. But get a finished product by Sunday night, maybe? And then trying to list them up at least by Tuesday. If it comes to it, I may end up having to do a few other things until the end of the month with it. But it should be, I should be able to update this on the last of the month with the information about the book, the animation, the board game, and the product. So I should be able to get that out of the way by the end of the month. Because this one doesn't have a whole lot more to it other than the actual labor of cutting and sanding the pieces, staining and finishing. And that's, if I put a day into it, I should be able to get at least one up and done. Might be overestimating my capabilities and the other things I have to do in my life. Okay, so I will give you an update tomorrow. I will see you then. Take care of yourselves.